What is the most important film ever made? I know that the question is insane. Putting so much weight into one film is a pretty crazy thing to do. And also, film is incredibly subjective. So a lot of people have their own precious film that's the most important to them. But after watching a pretty decent amount of films, you get to identify easily what kind of films that are going to immediately leave your mind as soon as you finish them, and ones that will stay within you and help you to view life and make it more unique. For me, there are a lot of films that do that. One of my favorite films of all time is Lost in Translation. Another film that I can think of is John Waters' masterpiece, Polyester. But when I try to be a bit objective in approaching this question of what is the most important film ever made, one film immediately sticks out more than the others, and that is Abbas Kiarostami's masterpiece, Close Up. If you don't know, Close Up is a film about a man named Sapsian who, like me, is a cinephile and is inspired to be a filmmaker. Still, his affection towards cinema is misguided as he actually decides to take the identity of one of the great Iranian filmmakers, Mohsen Makhmalbaf. He used this forged identity to take advantage of a family, and the film follows his journey and the consequences of his actions. So, why do I think that this film is important? There are a lot of reasons that I will explain next, but if I can cram it up in one sentence, I will say that unlike almost any films that I've ever seen, this film shows deeply how a filmmaker works, how a filmmaker thinks, and what they feel. In the film industry, a filmmaker's job is usually just to direct. Their job is just to realize what is on the script and put all the ingredients, sounds, the cameras, the acting, and compose it all together into an audio-visual translation that everybody can comprehensively digest and understand. And to some extent, there are a few filmmakers who went beyond. They insert some sort of themselves into the film. Their personality and their style are usually present. For example, filmmakers like Wes Anderson with his quirky, symmetrical camera technique, also Edgar Wright, who uses editing as his main tool in storytelling, fit the description before. But from this select few, there exists a rare number of filmmakers who insert their style not just for being different or making their interpretation of art, but also uses their style as a representation of their philosophical view in life. One filmmaker that I immediately think of that fits the description before is Andrei Tarkovsky, who uses long takes and minimal slow camera movement not as just a style or because it looks good, but it is also a reflection of his view that film can be spiritual in its consumption, and having slow, time-consuming scenes in his film is an important part of consuming his film, because through time itself is where we can experience life. And I believe that Abbas Kiarostami is alike. His unique filmmaking style is not just for the sake of his unique particular style, but it is also a reflection to his view on film as an art form. So what is his style? In his other films, like his other masterpiece, Days of Cherry, or his newer films like Certified Copy, he likes to put himself in the film. Not particularly himself, but he always made sure there's a distinction made in his films that made the audience understand that the films that they are watching is not just a story of somebody. It is also a fiction made by somebody who actually constructs the film with their own intention. And that is him, Abbas Kiarostami, the filmmaker. To sum things up, is there to make the audience understand that the story they are watching is a story being told specifically by him. For example, the ending of Taste of Cherry, where instead of cutting to the end credits, the film cuts to Abbas Kiarostami and the crew of the film talking and discussing scenes of the film. Or in the film Certified Copy, where there's a breaking the fourth wall scene in the film. Or in his other films like Life and Nothing More, where the role of the filmmaker is explored so deeply in the film that it blurs reality from fiction. And in Close Up, the way that Kiarostami makes the distinction is by using the unique technique of reenactment from the real person, from the real events, the real Sapsian, the real family involved to play themselves in the film. So how does this style reflect his view on the film as an art form? Let's analyze the film closer. When a film usually tells a story, we see it just as another fictional storytelling with some sort of meaning. If close-up were made like this, using no distinction, no reenactment, and instead used professional actors, the film would just become another film that recounts the story of the events. But because it uses the real people involved, that distinction helps to break the fourth wall of the film and transforms it into a film that connects the story and reality. This connection is made even clearer when the film includes Kiarostami himself, interviewing the real family that is involved in the event and Sabzian.
آقای کیارستمی، تا اینجای قضیه هر کس در ماجرای ما وارد شده خواسته به نفعی مسئله رو به نفع خودش تموم بکنه.
طوری نوشته شده که اصلا واقعیت‌ها رو نگفته.
خب واقعیت‌ها که نگفته به نظر شما چیه؟ از طرف کیه؟
هر چی که می‌خواست از طرف می خانواده، هر چی که می‌خواستم به میدادم به اصطلاح.
Which in turn makes the position of Abbas Kiarostami expand, not just as the director of the film, but also as a part of the film, which brings the interconnection between the real world and fiction closer. This interpretation helps us to see what Close Up is really about. This film is not just a film where a filmmaker, in this case Abbas Kiarostami, directs a film about somebody impersonating a great filmmaker. It becomes a film which a director recounts the story of somebody wanting to be just like him, a filmmaker. And with this interpretation, we can see that Kiarostami is actually being incredibly introspective. And the reenactment before, not only can it be seen as a way to make the distinction, but it is also a way for Kiarostami to investigate himself as a filmmaker. Through the film, he constructs the story in a way that reflects his own identity and anxieties as a filmmaker. Kiarostami interviewing Sabzian can be interpreted as a conversation that Kiarostami has with his actual self. Directing the reenactments can be seen as Kiarostami's way to examine how he fell in love with film. Is he a genuine filmmaker, or is it just a desire of wanting to be great and to be recognized by many people? Is it an identity that grows on its own, or is it just a parasite latching on somebody else's greatness? And organizing the trial scene can be seen as his way of judging himself as a filmmaker. Sabzian's action, posing as a director, using film as a form of self-expression, mirror Kiarostami's own understanding of cinema as a deeply personal and moral medium. Sabzian's journey inspires Kiarostami to be truthful and open about being a filmmaker, and he reflects those feelings by retelling Sabzian's story, inspiring people who are watching to be truthful and open to themselves. This intention can be seen in the multiple meaning of the title of the film, Close Up. The film is not just about the closeness of proximity that Kiarostami has to the story and to the people involved reenacting it with the real person. It is also a close-up to Kiarostami himself as a filmmaker and as a person. The analysis before helps to explain how his filmmaking style reflects his view on cinema. He sees film not just as an art form or a medium to tell a story, it is also a space for reflection on life, to see what moments in our life makes it worth living. And by incorporating himself, he doesn't do this just to be meta or something like that. He wants everyone to know that this is his reflection. This is what he thinks is important. This is what life is about. In short, he saw his job not just as a filmmaker, but also as a philosophical thinker. And he wants us also to be thinkers, reflecting life and understanding it as we live through it. And out of all his films, Close Up shows his value in film, art, and life the best. And that's why I think that this film is probably one of the most important films ever made. Thank you.
That's all, folks.